Not Quite Cool is a podcast that contains spoilers, opinions, and general nonsense. Listener discretion is advised.
Thank you.
Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Not Quite Cool, the podcast that records every 6 months just to catch you up on all of the things that have happened. Today, we're going to be talking about Thor: The Dark World, because that's the last time my name is Keith Brooks, and I'm here with, as always, Mr. Chad Dowdy. How you doing, Chad?
Hey, it's good to see you guys. Yeah, like you said, it's been forever.
Yeah, been a long time.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. And then with us, as always, is the bane of our existence, that pimple that you can't quite reach, your crippling tax debt embodied as a human, Mr. Robert Prago. How are you doing, Rob?
Schlummy. I'm schlummy. Thank you, Keith. Feeling schlummy. I appreciate it. I was wondering next time if you can start the podcast louder.
Totally can do.
Fucking ears blew out with these headphones. Hey, everybody. It's like, what?
I just found out that before he passed, Gilbert Godfrey had a podcast, and I wanted to go listen to it, and just to see how exciting it is and how grating on the ear. I wanted Gilbert Godfrey to do ASMR for the longest time, but I don't think he ever did. But yeah, so we're here to talk about some nerdy shit. We got a lot of nerdy stuff to talk about, guys. A lot of stuff. So we're just gonna go ahead and dive straight into it, and we're gonna start with something that we've all watched, something that everybody's been dying to hear our take on, and that is Marvel's She-Hulk. I think we did at least one. Did we do the first episode?
Just the first episode.
Yeah.
That's how long it's been.
So that means it's been a month. So there's 5 episodes in total now. So we've had 4 episodes come out since then.
So was that episode? That was episode 6, wasn't it? Episode 6 2 days ago?
I don't know.
I think that was 6 because I heard there was 3 more and there's 9 total.
Okay, cool. Then yeah. However many fucking episodes there's been, we're gonna talk about them all. Not necessarily gonna talk about them individual, but talk about the show, because we don't want to be here for 9.5 hours. Because again, Rob would fall asleep. So we're gonna talk about the show as a whole, what your thoughts of it, and if there are any particular episodes that you want to point out to praise, because I'm sure all we're gonna say are amazing things about the show. Chad, how have you felt about She-Hulk so far?
It is episode 6, by the way. I've looked it up. Official. That's how far we are.
We've seen 6. Okay, gotcha.
Yes, we've seen 6 total.
Good research. Good recon.
Yeah, no problem. That was totally super quick. I like the tone of this show. It's not like the other Marvel shows. I like it. I like what they're doing with the series as a whole. As I mentioned before, sensational She-Hulk is the type of She-Hulk I like. That's what this is. It's sensational She-Hulk. It's, there's a lot of funny stuff in it. It's still difficult for me to totally enjoy the show because of the CGI of She-Hulk.
Okay.
It's like, Rob, you're not going to understand what I'm about to say. Keith, you will. It's like cutscenes in video games.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
That's what it's like when She-Hulk is talking. It's fine when she's fighting, whatever, it looks totally fine. But when she's talking, interacting with people, it looks like a cutscene from a video game. Yeah. So it kind of takes me out of it a little bit in that regard. But overall, I like the tone. I feel, though, that it is not knocking it out of the park with what it's trying to do. There's definitely funny moments. It's irreverent. We've got crazy characters showing up. Mr. Immortal is from the Great Lakes Avengers, for crying out loud. It's amazing some of the pulls they're doing. It's not supposed to be a show you take seriously. I get it, and I'm not taking it seriously. It's fine. But some of it is a little more cringy than just enjoyable, funny to me. Again, overall, I like the show, but, I'm not really loving the show. So,
gotcha. Okay, so
we can see what Rob thinks about that, because he's
so funny
about the CGI. He watches it on his phone.
It's so funny now. I'm actually gonna I'm actually going to backtrack a second because I've been venting about this for so long. Like 3 weeks ago, Chad goes, "Oh my God, I can't wait to hear you go off on." I've been venting so long, I don't even have the energy to vent. Question to you guys though: Are our eyes getting more critical, or am I crazy? And the CGI in episode 1 was significantly better than it is right now. Like, have they not been as critical with the CGI? Does She-Hulk look worse in episode 6 than episode 1 to you? I'm curious, because it does to me.
To me, it doesn't. Like, I think it's a moment by moment thing. Like, sometimes there's certain elements that it's easier for us to buy it in than it is others. Others are just harder achievements. So, for example, I think it's episode 5 where her and her lawyer are walking down the stairs. Like, that's one of the episodes that I was like, oh, that looks rough, because that motion, you're doing basically a parabolum, like down a set of stairs. And it's just hard for us to make that seem real right now. But there are moments in episode 6 where I was like, yeah, that looks totally believable. Like, and then I get what you're saying, that every now and then there's that moment where, oh, that looks a little rough or rushed. But for me, it's not something I run into all the time, but I don't know.
Okay, so I really enjoyed episode 1. I flat out effing hated episode 2 and 3. Episode 4 and 5 were all right. Episode 6 was all right. It was a little bit. I was so excited about the first episode. It just had a great vibe. And again, maybe that was because I'm sorry, my laptop's about to die. Let me plug it back in. The pilot episode, I'm sure there was a level of detail, and they did have Mark Ruffalo the whole time. There was maybe her CGI was a little more. They were on a little more because it was up next to Ruffalo's, which they have sort of perfected a little bit. I don't know. Maybe not juxtaposed against him. The rest of the show, they weren't as meticulous about it. I don't know. There was a great vibe. It was a great feel. I thought it was a good entrance into the show. I enjoyed it. There was a lot of laughter. It was great. And then, it fell off into, it's hard to write and create anything good. Every episode feels rushed to me. Every episode, I feel like there's a bigger story, and 28 minutes ain't cutting it. It just feels clipped. I appreciate Marvel for their attempt at trying different genres and different things, and I love that. Like, I think this thing is just 9 episodes to get her into the bigger universe, because she's an awesome character. Everybody in it's great. I feel like I backtrack. Most of the people in it are great. The characters are good. I think they're a little shortchanged by a little bit of the writing and the production. Ginger Gonzaga, her best friend, awesome. I think she's stealing the show. I just realized the last couple of weeks, I was like, every episode she's good with everybody. She makes everybody around her better. I feel like she's, in a strange way, the straight man. She's sort of the grounding force in every scene she's in. She keeps the pace up. She's the glue between all the characters. She's awesome. Tatiana Maslany's great. I want to see her in other things as She-Hulk, when there's different tones, when it's a little more grounded, when she's with the Avengers, when she's sort of in the movies with everybody. I think that's going to be great. I think it's a great showpiece for some people. One of the things they did in Miss Marvel, Miss Marvel's production value is so much better. It looked better. It felt better. The family dynamic, and I know this is not about necessarily the family dynamic, but even with her friends, it's a family, and they did have her family a little bit. That's one of the weak things to me. It just, the whole family in this episode was just not working in the writing. I don't know. I was having a tough time with it. Now, it's interesting. I know, and again, spoilers, people listen to a podcast. When Charlie Cox was interviewed about the show, he said he worked on one episode with Tatiana. When I only did one episode is what he said. But on IMDb, I just noticed he's listed in 3 episodes. So, I hope he's lying. I hope he is in 3 episodes. That'd be great. Anyway, I digress. I'm addicted to Marvel. I'm watching all of them just because there's glue and there's things that will launch you into the next thing. I think these next 3 episodes, I hope these next 3 episodes reveal who's trying to get her blood. Now, they ended this last episode with the crazy, vicious, the world's worst looking needle that I've ever seen. Hopefully we find out who is behind it, where it's going and how it kind of launches in, and hopefully we see a little bit of Daredevil. That'd be kind of nice. Looking forward to that.
Yeah, I'm excited to see Daredevil, but I think to me, I love this show from beginning to end. I'm enjoying every single episode.
What?
Yeah, I know. I'm a shill. I'm wearing my She-Hulk is #1 t-shirt. I'm not really. I wish I had one though. I really enjoy, and I don't think to me, it's hitting the mark perfectly. Now, I didn't grow up on the Ally McBeal sort of television era or types of shows, but this is what I always imagined those shows to be like, with that irreverent humor. But at the same time that it is giving us that irreverent humor, it's also setting up things that could be bigger ideas. Where is Bruce going? What's that about? Who is this costume designer in Los Angeles? Tell me more about who he's working for. How did Titania get her powers? All of these things that are barely touched upon, but gives us the opportunity to do something with them later. And it's just planting those seeds. And I disagree with Rob, surprisingly, about the show feeling rushed. Whereas that's been my problem with every other MCU show. I'm not having that issue at all with this one. I feel that everything feels self-contained, but has the possibility to be something else. And I think part of that is Tatiana Maslany is the most charming fucking person on the planet. Every time she talks to the camera, I fall in love with her and just can't wait to see what she does next, right? And I also feel the emotional beats of this story are drastically different than things that we're seeing elsewhere. And I think that's the strong suit that Disney Plus provides to Marvel, is like, okay, you can tell different types of stories now. And I honestly feel like that's a strength of Disney as an umbrella corporation in general. I'm going to hit you with a moral that you're not expecting, that's maybe non-traditional. Even this one of the episode where her date gets on the stand and says, I wouldn't have dated Jin, she's not my type. And that look on She-Hulk's face of the conflict about who you really are now, right? And when people only accept a part of you, that's like a really deep statement that is done with subtlety that we could just move on. But, and that, even that brings me to other plot lines that we can follow with who is Todd, who is, where does he come from? I think the vast majority of these Disney Plus characters are going to exist within the Disney Plus world for a while before they make it into the films. I think She-Hulk's going to have a season 1, a season 2 before it even gets to the movies. I think the same thing with Moon Knight. Miss Marvel is probably the only exception. Though I do think she's probably going to have a season 2 as well. So yeah, I'm fucking here for it. Plus, Wongers is great. Madison was fun.
Yeah,
that is a star-making role. Literally, that is a star-making turn for that actress. That was
But even awesome. the Lula character from this last one, I thought she was fantastic. I think you have some great supporting cast. That it's also, every single female that I've talked to that I've seen this show absolutely fucking loves it. Feels like it's speaking to them. And I see a lot of that on the internet of like, oh, they just like it because it's anti-man. But it's not really. I mean, even the Lula character has that critical eye of the woman. When Jin tries to tell her everything that's going on in her life, she's like, no, I meant, do you have a boy in your life? Like that, so I feel like it's doing a great job of pocket representation. These are the types of people you're going to meet in your world. Let's have a superhero meet those and make it feel more realistic in that regard. Maybe it is fairy telling a little bit of the life troubles and struggles, but still through that we're connecting to it in a certain way. I really dig it, and Rob's wrong in his opinion. So
I couldn't stand that Lula character. I hated every woman.
Loved it.
At that wedding. They were all douchebags.
You should have stopped the podcast after Rob says, I hated every woman.
Yeah,
That's
100%
right there.
Cutting it right there. Yeah.
I hated every woman. They were all douchebags to her. Are you kidding me? They all treated her like shit.
Yeah.
There was not like one nice woman there at the fucking wedding. Are you kidding me?
That's exactly the point that I was making. That's exactly the point of the show. Like,
you just said, I love the Lula characters. They were all terrible.
She's an antagonist. That's the idea, is that she's a fake antagonist.
But it's not real. It's not grounded and realistic. There's
It's
Good
a
Lord,
giant fucking green woman that changes into a superhero. What realism do you want there?
I want the realism consistent in the MCU. That's what I want.
But that's never happened because the realism has shifted from project to project.
No,
Where that scale
I'll argue
is.
the tone is shifted, the genre is shifted, but there's a groundedness in most of them that's pretty consistent. Even in WandaVision, there was a grounded reality based, even though she was in a fantasy world for a while. Okay. There's just situations here that are cartoony. Not look, Ally McBeal. I know you said you don't watch it. Ally McBeal was awesome, and it was irreverent and it was silly, but it still had a grounded base where you can relate to these characters a little bit. And even though we're dealing with a comic book world, you still find themselves in situations where you go, I can relate to that. Just the connections. This is a little underproduced. A little underproduced.
I want to rewind a second because isn't Ally McBeal famous for a dancing baby? Isn't that like the thing?
But that was in their mind.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't real.
Yeah,
okay. It wasn't like, hey, there's a dancing baby. Works. There's a lawyer with it.
I'm just saying. but like literally, what
there was yes, they were.
That's
crazy.
Rob when he goes out on the town. You're like, hey, look at that dancing baby.
Yeah, exactly.
It's real. It's with us. Hey, I got one.
But I think that this show has that hyper realism that's more akin to something like I don't know, Better Off Ted or even something like The Good Place or something like that, where it is Community, New Girl, any of these shows. There's still those things that you can relate to, but it is played for a hyper sense of sitcominess, right? And it's just the modern interpretation of what the sitcom is. And I feel this is tapping into that vibe specifically.
It is sitcom-y for sure, as far as that goes. And there's crazy things happening in sitcoms that are not realistic. So I see what you're saying with that aspect, but I do want to touch on two things that you had said, Keith, as far as when the guy's on the stand and he's saying, I don't dig Jen. I like She-Hulk. I think the look that you were looking at when they were showing She-Hulk was unfinished CGI. I don't think that was
acting. That wasn't acting.
I don't think so. It was just unfinished CGI.
Okay.
So I think that was good. And the other thing you said is you fall in love with her every time she talks to us. I agree, but I want more.
Yeah.
There's not enough of her talking to the camera. I want more fourth wall breaks. That's what I want with that. I would ask you, Keith, specifically at the wedding, when they mentioned that her person she's walking down the aisle with,
Jonathan.
And in my mind, I'm thinking like, okay, who's in the MCU? This Jonathan or whatever. I was like, okay, so no, they're not going to do the Human Torch. Johnny Storm's not going to be in this, but I was like, Johnny Blaze. We just had Donnie Blaze.
Yeah, that'd be.
So the whole time I'm thinking like, it's going to be Ghost Rider. It's going to be Johnny Blaze or whatever. It's a little puppy dog. I was like,
it's amazing. Okay. That's even better. I don't know why she was upset about that one. The puppy, even if he leaks, he was cute as shit. The thing that got to me, there's a comic that sort of, I think it has a similar setup, but I don't think she's at a birth. I think she's at a birthday party, not a wedding, where she runs into a guy named Josh, which is also the name of the dude she met here.
Right.
But that Josh is the new hate monger. And so I don't know. So I'm wondering if they're going to go that deep. They haven't given us a shit ton of characters, but most of the characters they've given us are from the She-Hulk comic, whether it's Puck or whatever. But a Pug, not Puck, whatever. And then the Mr. Immortal cameo. That's crazy. That is insane to me. It's weird the way they chose to do his character, but I'm totally fine with it. Just to see him, opens up the world for Squirrel Girl and all the Doorman and all those people. So I'm stoked about it. I love.
They had him under the umbrella from Mandalorian, and he's so good. They're like, what can he do? They just gave us up. Yeah, he's great.
So good.
So funny.
And then I'm loving the entire cast. I think they're all great. I love her opponent, the girl from Hamilton. I think she's phenomenal in everything she does. And I agree with you. I think her assistant rocks it out in every scene she's in.
So good.
Yes,
good. Another star-making turn.
That voicemail that she left She-Hulk in this last episode was hilarious.
Yeah.
She was like, I'm not supposed to tell you this. She said not to because it'll like break you mentally or stuff. But here I am. I'm doing it. So
yeah, absolutely. And I think that's what I think is going to be the hate monger thing. That intelligentsia website is going to be Josh is going to be secretly behind that and all that stuff. I think, but that's my opinion.
That's one of the few moments of the series where I was like, that's what a real person would have done, a friend. because I was so afraid that she wasn't going to call her and tell her. Because as it's happening, I'm going, if she doesn't tell her, it's bullshit. And the next thing is she's telling her. So I was like, okay, well, there's a moment of somebody doing something based on the relationship that they would do. And that was great.
Yeah.
That's why she's awesome. She's awesome.
I agree. I don't know why you're arguing.
Awesome. I want to do it as loud as you.
You're wrong, Keith. She's awesome.
She's awesome. Yeah.
Well, speaking of things that were wrong but awesome, let's move on to our next project that we're going to talk about. This is a movie that I saw that I forgot to put in the text, guys. But when Chad said bad CGI, it reminded me of it. And that is Disney's Pinocchio, directed by Robert Zemeckis. I saw that on.
Too, Keith.
Oh, did you too? Okay, good. Well, cool.
Yeah, I saw it, but it was like when I was 8 years old. And a long time ago. But yeah, I saw the exact thing that you saw.
I would disagree because the original one from the 1940s is fucking fantastic. And the new one with Zemeckis, I like. There's some great parts to it. If you're unfamiliar, Disney just released their new live action quote unquote version of Pinocchio on Disney Plus, starring Tom Hanks, Keegan-Michael Key, Joseph Gordon-Levitt. It's got a great cast all the way across the board. And I think the vast majority of the film is totally fine. There's some cool additions that Zemeckis puts in it. There's a character who has her leg in a brace who I think is really enchanting. I think the kid that plays Pinocchio is pitch perfect. And I think Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who plays Jiminy Cricket, is also absolutely phenomenal in the job that he does. Both which, in their voice acting, sort of harken back to the 1940s. And at times, it's weird for me to say this, Tom Hanks looks like the underdog as far as all these other people are running circles around him because they're doing such interesting things with their characters, and he's sort of isolated and feels like a regular Tom Hanks performance, if that makes any sense. And it's beautiful. Like a lot of the animation is absolutely gorgeous. Keegan-Michael Key plays Honest John the Fox. I kind of wish it was Matt Berry from What We Do in the Shadows. I think that would have been a little more spot on. But all of the sequences, as far as him getting stole, Luke Evans plays the head of the Pleasure Island, and his sequences are crazy and creepy, and all of those are great. The place the movie falls apart for me is the last act when we get into Monstromo the whale, and then the movie starts to look like a cutaway scene from a PlayStation 1 video game, and it seems like the animation, they just ran out of budget or something. It looks rough. Everything else looks absolutely stunning until we get there, and it's like, oh my God, this is, ugh. And it just feels sort of rushed. It feels unfinished. The ending is also different than the Pinocchio cartoon that we've come to love. They've changed that. I think it's more akin to the book. Maybe not as satisfying, but I think overall the film's getting a lot of hate. I think it's fine. I think just the end part is the part that sucks. Everything else is fine. It's cute, I guess. If you've never seen Pinocchio, whatever. That's it. That's all I got. Did you really see it, or you just saw the original?
No, I just saw the original. And when you didn't have on your list that you saw it, I was like, oh man, I was hoping Keith would have watched that so I could make that joke.
Yeah, good. I'm glad I came through.
I've had that joke in the chamber, buddy. Let me tell you.
Well, speaking of something else in the chamber, there's no segue to this. Oh yeah, in the chamber, we can do this one. Chamber is also a martial arts term, and that leads us to another show that Chad watched, season 17 or something of Cobra Kai on Netflix. Chad, tell us about season 5. Why don't you wax on philosophically and then wax off philosophically about Cobra Kai?
Yeah, I love the show. It's cheap in areas, but doesn't bother me at all. There's some of the acting's not the greatest, doesn't bother me at all. The fights do not compare to, like, a Daredevil or even Arrow, things like that. But I love this show. It is such nostalgia porn for me. And Karate Kid's not even like my favorite movie, like from my childhood. Like, yeah, I like it, but it's not Star Wars, Yeah. What it does though is the writing is so perfect. It gives me everything that I want exactly when I want it. It's amazing how good they are. I'll think to myself, man, I'd love for those two people to fight. Next episode, they're fighting. Oh, it'd be cool if those two people teamed up. They're teaming up. It is awesome. One of the episodes, they had one of the characters just walking into his house, and he's just singing Chris Jericho's theme song and for no reason.
Awesome.
And I'm like, yeah, that's what. I love it. They're just all these
great.
little things that it's like, this show is perfect for me. Now, with all of the there's talk of like a new Karate Kid movie or something. I don't really know anything about that or whatever.
It's apparently not connected to the show.
Yeah. So this is just like perfect. I don't know how they're going to be able to top. It seems like every season is so awesome with Cobra Kai. I love it so much. One of my favorite tropes in movies, it's my absolute favorite tropes, is when like if a bad guy teams up with a good guy to take on a greater threat. I love that. I'm a sucker for that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And in this season, all three bad guys from all three Karate Kid movies team up.
That's awesome.
With Daniel to take on a bigger bad. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know what could be better than bringing back all three original bad guys from the movies to team up. It's awesome. I can't praise this show enough. I love it so much.
That's awesome.
Did we get any Hilary Swank in this one or not yet?
No Hilary Swank, no mention. But what they brought in this season that they haven't had before is they brought in a Cobra Kai female sensei.
Okay.
So it could be setting that up
for
the future because they brought, a female sensei and that nobody can fight except some of the younger girls on the show right now, So I wouldn't be surprised if Hilary Swank does show up. But yeah, huge fan. I can't praise the show enough. I love it.
How many seasons have they done?
Season 5.
Wow.
This is season 5.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, speaking of awesome things, let me go on to a film that I watched. And that is the new film by Mad Max director George Miller. It is 3,000 Years of Longing, starring Tilda Swinton and Idris Elba. It's based on a book, and it's about a woman who's a folklorist, basically, who finds a genie, and the genie starts telling her his life story. So imagine the prologue of any fantasy film where it's like setting up, long ago Sauron made a bunch of rings, which we'll cover that momentarily. Those prologues that you see, this movie is an extended version of that, and it's beautiful. It is beautiful to watch, and it's weird. A bunch of weird shit happens consistently, but the trailer made it seem very bombastically weird, and I don't think it's that. It has a lot of nightmarish scenes, but ultimately it's a little love story that in of itself is self-contained, but we're learning about these people's backgrounds and where they come from. Where does she come from? What's her life? What's the genie's life? All that sort of stuff. And I think they both give wonderful performances. Tilda Swinton's always phenomenal and finds a way to reinvent herself with every single character. And she's this very diminished, demure woman in this role, confident in a way, but also very quietly kept. Where Idris Elba is a 9-foot tall fucking genie. So it's very interesting to watch. And yeah, so just a lot of fun, especially if you like Miller's work. This is a great thing to watch. I can't recommend it enough. But it's got a lot of power to it, as does this next show that we're going to be talking about. And that's Amazon's The Rings of Power. I think they're on their 5th episode. I've watched everything except for the newest one, and Chad's watched the first 3. Chad, how are you feeling about going back to Middle Earth? Are you enjoying it? Do you feel the fellowship? Are you excited about the Return of the King? Other puns inserted here. What do you think?
Yeah, I am enjoying it. It feels like Lord of the Rings to me.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's beautiful, like Lord of the Rings. We're in that world with elves and dwarves and hobbits and everything, and I'm really taken back to Lord of the Rings. Yeah. I love it. This show is a little bit of a slower burn, but again, it's a show, so we have plenty of time. And so I've read The Hobbit as a kid. I've seen the Hobbit movies, love the Lord of the Ring movies. I love them. Fellowship of the Ring is one of my favorite movies of all time. I love Fellowship of the Ring. So I'm a big fan of this in general, but I don't really know too much about like the history.
Yeah.
So most of this stuff is new to me, where I know like some people know what's going to happen with, Sauron and things like that. And so I'm just really along for the ride. I don't know what's going to happen ultimately until way down the line, of course. But yeah, I'm looking forward to the next episode. It's just timing. That's why I haven't seen more, but I'm digging it. Like I said, it looks beautiful. The character is awesome. Kate Blanchett from the Lord of the Rings.
Galadriel.
Galadriel. I can never pronounce her name. Galadriel in this one. She's awesome. Big fan.
Absolutely. And I think, like, to me, it's interesting because they bought the rights to part of the Lord of the Rings saga, but not the actual books themselves, which is weird. That's a weird contract. So a lot of this, the information is coming from the Silmarillion, but they're not actually telling that story. They're just using parts of it. So a lot of this is original material that they're playing with. And I think they've done a great job of sort of exploring that world in a way that makes me invested. I want to learn more. And interestingly, Tolkien's work isn't all about action. It's about the relationships between different species. It's about hierarchy. It's about royalty. It's about all that shit. And I think they've done a great job of sort of capturing that. The only problem that I have so far is I feel there's a hint at like an Aragorn type story already within this. And that's the only thing that feels not fresh. But I also feel that part of the mystery is that Sauron is back. Who is he? Which one? I think the obvious choice would be the Stranger, but I kind of feel he's more Gandalf than he is Sauron. So I'm excited to see how these things build and where it goes to. I think the lady playing Galadriel is perfect. I love her. I love the elf archer dude. He's awesome.
Yeah, he's awesome too.
Yeah. I love the proto hobbits. I think they're great. I'm really enjoying them. The last episode I watched was all elf. I didn't get to see any of them. So I kind of got disappointed in that. But I'm excited to see what happens and where this goes. Plus, that first episode, we got like an ice troll or whatever it was. That was dope as shit. So go ahead.
Yeah, that definitely reminded me of Lord of the Rings, the first episode, because they're traveling, and fighting stuff. Rob, I can't remember Lord of the Rings, like the movies. Are you a fan of the movies?
Yes, love them.
So is this just an issue of timing, or do you not have any interest to watch this show?
It's all timing. I'm sitting here more in awe of the fact that you guys have consumed so much unbelievable content in the same amount of time. And I'm like, where the fuck do you find the time to watch all this content? That's amazing to me.
In 6 months, Rob.
I'm literally, but I got 3 jobs. I work at McDonald's. There's a lot going on.
Yeah.
He can barely watch like 2 episodes of Groot, remember?
I
can only finish 2 episodes.
12 minutes out of my day, guys. Time is of the essence here. I watched the first 20 minutes of The Lord of the Rings the day it came out. I'm chatting it right now. I'll watch 20 minutes every couple months, catch up. It was beautiful. I watched it. I was like, I don't know any of these characters. It's late at night. I'm going to bed. But it looked really nice.
Yeah.
It was majestic. I wish the Marvel TV shows looked like that.
Yeah. 100%.
That'd be great. No, I'll catch up on it eventually.
Yeah. Sometimes you just got to speed through things like we're speeding through this, almost like a bullet train, which brings me to the next thing that I watched, which is a new film called Bullet Train. Not new anymore. It was new when I watched it. But Bullet Train stars Brad Pitt, Aaron Taylor Johnson, Fastest from the Eternals. Who else is in it that I don't ruin it?
Bad Bunny.
The dude from G.I. Joe that plays Ninja Storm. Sandra Bullock, she's in the trailer. It's a bunch of people, and it's directed by the guys from John Wick and Deadpool, I think.
One of them. Yeah, not both. Yeah, one.
Yeah, super fucking fun. What a fun movie this was. I just had a blast. There's tons of cameos, so that's why I was trying to dodge naming people that aren't in the trailer. And it's just a hitman has a bad day, and you get to see why. All these people, it's Murder on the Orient Express drinking a Monster energy drink. That's what it is. And Nice. It's just really fun to watch. Brad Pitt is hilarious. He's so smooth in everything that he does, and a consummate joy to watch. I can't recommend this enough. I absolutely loved it. I thought it was really just a wonder. Mythic almost in proportions, almost like this next thing that we're going to be talking about, or at least Chad's going to be talking about, the prequel to the show Game of Thrones on HBO Max while it exists before Warner Brothers cuts it. House of the Dragon. Chad, I don't know how many episodes have come out because I don't give a shit. So can you tell me a little bit about House of the Dragon and what you're thinking about it so far?
There's been 5 episodes of House of the Dragon,
Okay.
and similar to Lord of the Rings, this feels like Game of Thrones. It is a prequel as well. This one's only like 200 years prior to Game of Thrones. So there are some things that people know because they remember from the book. I've read the books, the Game of Thrones. There's like 1,000 people, 1,000 different names. I don't remember everything and I don't retain that information. So I really don't know how some of this stuff is going to go. So I'm along for the ride. But somebody said this like on Twitter, and I'm going to steal their joke, but I'm going to butcher it a little bit. But they're talking about the difference between the Game of Thrones and Lord of the Rings. Game of Thrones is like, let's go cut off some heads and then go fuck our cousins. That's Game of Thrones. And Lord of the Rings is like, before this battle, I shall write a sonnet about this butterfly and its wonder in the world and how it sees all but nothing at the same time.
Gotcha.
Like, that's Lord of the Rings. That's Game of Thrones.
So that's Alabama versus Greenwich Village. Got it. Okay, awesome.
Yeah. So they are different, similar worlds, dragons, wizards a little bit, if you want to call them that in Game of Thrones. There's magic users, things like that. There's not necessarily trolls and things like that in Game of Thrones, but there's zombies, daywalkers, cool. Things like White Walkers or stuff. So it's similar, but they almost couldn't be more different to me, in that regard. It's the closest thing I really, you made that joke. It's like Star Wars and Star Trek,
That's awesome. Yeah.
There's Star Trek is the bright world, there's bad stuff happening in it or whatever. Star Wars is dingy and dirty, both equally awesome to me. And I feel the same way about this. The one thing that this is doing a little bit different is so far in the first 5 episodes, there's been consistent time jumps where we will jump a couple years into the future. And this next episode 6, which is coming out, the lead character, the female that is in all of the posters, is no longer on the show because they are jumping 10 years into the future and they have recast her. And that is by design. It's not, one of those situations where they have they don't like the actress. By design, they have now jumped. It's probably been like 15 years since the first episode. That's what episode 6 will be.
That's very similar to our last episode of the podcast.
Exactly. That's why next episode we're going to recast.
Recast me, absolutely.
But the main actress that's being recast is the younger girl with the white hair.
That's
right?
Correct.
She's
not the only one. There's other people that are being recast, but she's the main actress.
Yeah.
And she's being recast with an older actress.
She's the one I was talking about on the previous podcast maybe like 2 podcasts ago.
She was awesome. I actually watched the first episode. She was awesome.
Yeah, so she's in that like horror movie I saw, the Australian horror film, and she's just phenomenal. She was so good. Yeah.
Well,
and they've recast her? Jesus.
She was in it's a festival thing that's on Shudder, and she was in the last section of it. But it's like 6 short films. I think it's called like Eldridge Night or something like that. And she's in the last one, and she was so fucking good. So yeah, I enjoy that. Well, that sounds super. Especially if you're a fan of Game of Thrones. That sounds super so far. Much like the next thing that we're going to talk about, which is a movie I saw called the DC League of Superpets, starring The Rock, Kevin Hart, John Krasinski, Keanu Reeves, Kate McKinnon, all these characters playing lovely pets and the Justice League themselves. This movie was, again, like Bullet Train, was so much fucking fun. I found myself belly laughing. If you're a fan of DC superheroes, you should go see this. It doesn't like take the piss out of them the same way like something like DC Lego Batman does, where it sort of allows itself to riff on them, but it just has wonderful jokes that fit so well into this world. And I thought it was going to be just about the conflict between the pets, and that the Justice League would just be background characters, almost like in Muppet Babies. You don't really deal with the humans, but it's not. The basic story is a gerbil who used to belong to Lex Luthor, gets powers and wants to go take down the Super League. So the Justice League. So she kidnaps all of them, and the Super Pets have to sort of find a way to save them. And it's all these other animals that have powers that didn't have powers before Crypto, who is used to having powers, no longer does. So it's a topsy-turvy world that we're dealing with. But it's absolutely great. Just stupid jokes that make me giggle super hard. When this hamster character introduces herself to Superman, she calls him, Kal-El, son of Jor-El. I am Peaches, daughter of Cinnamon, because she's a gerbil, and just dumb stuff like that. It's so great. But obviously, to Superman, all he's hearing is squeak, 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 because she's a gerbil. And so just that cute, wonderful humor for an entire movie. I can't recommend it enough. A lot of fun. And speaking of a lot of fun, Chad and I saw a bunch of scary movies. So we're just going to start going through some of these.
Go for it. You go for it. Listen.
Rob,
it's a great podcast. I'm enjoying the hell out of it.
Yeah.
Rob's like terrified to watch a scary movie.
Yeah, 100%. But Rob also only saw 2 things. So I've strategically placed one at the beginning, one at the bottom. So yeah,
that's why I asked his opinion about Lord of the Rings.
Yeah,
I don't really care about his opinion of Lord of the Rings. Whatever.
That's all right.
Yeah, Rob, how do you feel about A24 films? Like, anyway, so let's start with an A24 film since I made the joke. Let's go ahead and dive into Bodies. Now, this stars Pete Davidson and some other actors. The lady from Borat, the sequel, who's also going to be Cosmo the space dog in the upcoming Guardians of the Galaxy. I thought she did a great job in this. Chad, you texted me after seeing Bodies, saying it was your favorite A24 film. Does that still stand? How did you feel about it?
Yeah. So keep in mind, I still have not seen Everything Everywhere.
Oh, so
but out of all the A24 films, this is my favorite one. This movie's very fun.
Yeah.
I love it. There's great characters. I love the ending. I feel like that, except for the murders, I've been to this party many times.
Including the murders. College was rough, but yeah.
Party with your friends that go off the rails. People are crying. People are arguing with each other. Everybody's just trying to have a good time, and just craziness happens. So I felt like I knew these people. That being said, though, I don't know how to pronounce her name, but Rachel Sennett, she stole the movie. She's the one that was wearing the light up bracelets around her neck.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
She was incredible. I was like, I want to see what she's going to do next, because she was so good in this movie, and everyone seemed so real.
Yeah.
And heightened at the same time. But I'm a big fan.
I agree completely. And I feel like Lee Pace was phenomenal in this
He was
movie.
awesome.
Every single actor, I could watch them for hours doing whatever, because just like you said, they felt so realistic within these scenes, but also satirical. Part of what I think gets lost a lot when we're watching 80s horror movies and putting them on a pedestal is we forget that they're also making fun of the culture at the time, right? These movies are supposed to feel like teenagers getting lost in the woods, doing drugs and all that stuff, but it's also poking fun at the pop culture elements, right? If you watch something like Friday the 13th, there's a lot of tongue-in-cheek jokes that the teenagers are doing. And this movie nails that, talking about social media presence and all of these first world problems, all that stuff. There's a serious element to it, but then there's also this comedic aspect of it that feels so wry, you know what I mean? Almost to the degree that She-Hulk does it, but She-Hulk probably, I think we all agree, is more grounded and does it better. I think, but I love this film because it has that slasher flick plot, essentially, but then it's not until the end that you realize that's not what you're watching.
Yeah.
And that's just brilliant. It's so fun. I know a lot of people are pissed off with that ending.
Not me.
I thought it was brilliant. What a creative way to get me out of this movie. Loved it. Absolutely. I dug it a lot.
Yep.
So I just want to say before we move on from this, an A24 interjection here. Whatever Chad's favorite A24 movie is right now, it will change in the next year and a half when they release the biopic of the cursed wrestling family, the Von Erichs.
Yeah.
And they just announced the casting the lead, Carrie, my new favorite actor, whose name I don't know, from The Bear.
Jeremy Allen White.
Yes, you encyclopedia of names. That's going to be.
Well, I had texted it to you guys, so I'm just looking at the text.
Thanks. Technology.
Something else Rob didn't read.
Technology.
He said, I saw 1,000 Years of Longing. Rob was like, oh.
Yeah,
I was like, I didn't know he'd seen it. I was like, yeah. I was like, oh fuck, he texted that. No shit, I should read those.
That's good.
But you want to see my real reactions, though.
Yeah, exactly. It's just acting. It's like, okay, guys, I'm gonna act like I haven't seen anything this week. Okay.
I'm gonna be the curmudgeon. I'm gonna act like
it. So moving on to our next one that we're gonna watch, that we're gonna discuss about. This is another prequel, not necessarily on the scale of House of Dragons, but Orphan First Kill, starring the only person whose name I know off the top of my head is Julia Stiles is in this movie, who takes an interesting turn in this film. I hated her for the first half of the film, loved her in the second half of the film. Directed by the same guy who did the Boy series, and I also did another sequel to something, but I can't think of what it is. Chad, what did you think about Orphan First Kill? And did you enjoy the first Orphan film?
It's hard for me to really remember the first Orphan film, except of course for the twist.
Exactly.
At the end. And I thought the twist was great.
Yeah.
In the first Orphan film. So because of that, I feel like I did enjoy it because it wasn't like, oh, the movie was horrible. And the twist saved it. I thought the twist was pretty cool. So, and I didn't see the twist coming either. I didn't know about it or see the twist coming in the original Orphan. So I dug that. And what I liked about this one is because there's a twist in this one too, but it's a different twist.
Yeah.
And what's funny about that is I was watching it and I thought to myself, not really thinking this was going to happen, but thinking like, oh, that'd be so funny if blah, 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 blah. That's what I thought in my head. And then that's what happened. I was like, oh my gosh, that's perfect.
Yeah.
That was the twist. And I agree about the Julia Stiles thing, first half, second half, by design, potentially.
Absolutely, yeah.
But yeah, I dug that a lot. And what it did is funny because it kind of went on even though it's a prequel, it went on the Don't Breathe 2 route. Where
That's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah, you're rooting for the bad guy.
Yeah, and they succeeded. I feel like they succeeded in me rooting for the bad guy. Even at the beginning of the movie, she's doing horrendous things and killing people and getting people killed.
Absolutely.
By the end of the movie, I'm rooting for her to win.
I would agree with that, except for the very end of the movie. I feel so. My viewing experience was I was enjoying it enough. I had some problems with Julia Stiles, and because of that, because of her performance, I wasn't enjoying the movie as much as I thought I would. But I was reminded of this true life case that a documentary has been made about called The Imposter. But it started getting off vibes like that, and then the twist happens and it's the same story. This is what they based this movie off of, right?
The First Kill one.
Yeah. So that really happened with this imposter story. So once the twist happens, I'm in love. This is great. I feel a little bit of conflict about the fact that I am now rooting for the bad guy. But then there's something that happens between Esther and the dad at the very end that was creepy, that I'm like, okay, now she's the bad guy again for 1 second, you know? And so I enjoyed it. I thought it was a fun watch. I don't think it's going to be in the pinnacle of horror movies, but it's super enjoyable. I do remember liking the first one because the first one had an amazing cast. So, you know, I dug this. I can't speak any evil about it. And that brings us to our next film. Which is, I don't think it's a Shudder exclusive necessarily, but it is on Shudder now. It's called Speak No Evil. And how do I describe this movie? A Danish and a Dutch family become friends, kind of. Chad, your thoughts on this film?
So listen, there's some stuff going on in this one. I feel like for this one, Rob's never going to watch it. We're going to spoil this one.
Okay.
Pretty hardcore because I want to talk about this one. This is a great slow burn movie.
Yeah.
But when we have the reveal, when he goes in the shed or wherever he's in and he sees those pictures of those kids, I literally stood up with my hand over my mouth like, oh my gosh.
So let me give some context for this. Yep. So two families, both relatively nuclear, man and a woman and a child for each family. One has a daughter, one has a son. They meet at a vacation spot and they hit it off pretty well. The son of one of the families doesn't really speak. He has a condition, they say. But after they leave this vacation spot, they keep in touch. And the Dutch family invites the Danish family to come have a holiday at their house. kind of reluctantly because they don't really know these people that well, but their life feels stagnant. They go. And when they get there, the Dutch family is just doing things that are inconsiderate. They forget that the wife is vegetarian. They leave the TV on too loud. They're yelling at their son in a very aggressive manner. They basically start fucking in the middle of a bar while the other couple is right there. They hire a babysitter for this other couple's daughter without telling them that that's what they're doing. All sorts of weird stuff. And as we're getting further and further into the oddities that you think are just, it's a weird family, it's just a conflict between two different ways of living life, the husband of the Danish family walks into a shed and sees all these pictures of this couple with different kids, all different children in every photo. Couple that with earlier, he saw the boy yawn or something, and the boy doesn't have a tongue. Which is where his tongue used to be. And so it reveals that this couple is going to kill the Danish couple and take their daughter. And that's just what they do. And it's fucked up. There's this scene where they take this little girl and they cut her tongue out on camera.
Wild.
Yeah, it's wild.
But even the photos that you're talking about, when it shows the photos, Rob, it's not just the family with a different kid. It's the family with a kid along with another couple with their kid. Then there's another picture of a different family, but now they have the kid from the other picture. So you can clearly see what is going on. They are bringing people in and taking their child, cutting the child's tongue out so the child can't talk.
Oh my God.
Taking their child.
And it's so there's just small uncomfortable things like the kids are going to share a room in this house, and they have the boy has his own bed, and they make a little cot on the floor for the girl. The first couple of days, the girl sneaks into her parents' room and sleeps with them. Then one day, one of the parents wakes up and is walking through the house, and the girl has snuck into the parents' room that aren't her parents, and the dad is sleeping nude beside her. And it's just like I watching this movie, I even texted Chad. I'm like, this is so fucking uncomfortable. I can't imagine being a parent and watching this movie. It would be it's a parent's nightmare. You know what I mean?
Well, it is. And, and I am a parent. So the movie was creepy and crazy, but it definitely is something like it's hard for me to wrap my hand around the way these parents acted at certain points.
Yeah. Because
once the child is in the bed with the naked dad, that's it. You're not going to hang out with them anymore. You're done.
Yeah, they left, but then they came back for the bunny.
But they came back, then they stay though.
Yeah.
After they come back to the bunny, and they stay, which I don't necessarily buy that. But what I don't buy, 100% don't buy, is the end when they are cutting off the daughter's tongue. The way the parents are reacting, they're trying to stop them, but you're just going to have to kill me at that point. I'm never going to stop.
Yeah.
Fighting and clawing and scratching until you kill me or knock me out.
Yeah.
And that's not how they react. And even when they cut the daughter's tongue out and take her away, you could say the mom's in shock, whatever. They're not trying to fight back at all at that point. I don't agree with that. And I don't like that aspect. It takes it down a point for me because of, I don't understand that. And even after that, where they just get out of the car, they, take off your clothes, all that stuff. What's going to happen. They have no fight left in them, but you should. Your daughter is still alive, and you know what's going to happen because not only have they cut your daughter's tongue off, eventually they're going to kill your daughter and replace her with another child.
But I also think it's like that perspective is, I think, why they targeted those people. Because I mean, throughout the entire movie,
I get that that's the way they are. But at some point, a parent, you got two parents, one maybe, both parents are not going to be that way. I just don't see that. Granted, there could be people like that in real life, but I just don't understand.
But
you could allow that to happen.
I'm glad to see, because I haven't seen you this fired up since Zack Snyder's Justice League, a film I know you love. But I think but that's the effect this movie has on you. Like, I I was feeling away even with my dogs there, like nobody's ever gonna do this to you, baby, like sort of vibe. This is an uncomfortable, emotional film to watch, and it's highly effective. I suggest
Very much so.
it's one of it's one of the best movies I think I've ever seen as far as being so effective. But speaking of other great movies that we've seen, I think that segue gives too much. No, let's do this one because I think this one's absolutely great. Barbarian, Justin Long, Bill Skarsgård, and I don't know the lead actress's name, but she was phenomenal. Chad, this is another one I can't really explain. People get an Airbnb, kind of. Chad, what did you think about Barbarian?
This is really cool. I didn't know what to expect going into this movie, other than the trailer, which is basically the first 15 to 20 minutes of the film. That's all it is, and then you don't know, and then it kind of goes crazy. It was very much to me like an anthology film, honestly, because you got the Airbnb stuff at the beginning, then you got the Justin Long stuff, and then you have the flashback stuff, and then it all coming together. So it was very much like anthology. Surprisingly, so much of it was funny, particularly the Justin Long segments or parts. He was hilarious, especially to be like the douchebag that he's playing and still be funny. That it worked for me. Unlike Speak No Evil, where we spoiled it, I would recommend not spoiling this one because it's just out there, and this is like watch it to believe it. Our
producer real quick is telling us that Georgina Campbell is the name of the lead actress. But go ahead. I'm sorry. You will say.
I was going to say, the thing that was awesome to me was the shot the next morning after, she stayed the night at the Airbnb and walked out and looked at the neighborhood. And so I was like, that is awesome. How
also,
they did that.
The recreation of the neighborhood when we get the flashback is fantastic. But that actress, the documentary filmmaker in it, when she tells her what neighborhood she's staying in and the color that drops, there are so many. I hope this becomes a franchise, but I hope none of the movies feel like this one does, because there's that line that the homeless guy says of, that's not the worst thing in there. That is like, what the fuck? Because this, the bad guy, it's hard to describe. One of the bad guys in this film, who we initially think is the main bad guy, is so terrifying. Like, it was a terrifying image.
Oh, yeah.
And an interesting explanation of how it happened. And almost Lovecraftian, almost, creepypasta sort of vibe of a story. Like you, I didn't know what to expect. I know Justin Long, when he makes a horror film, ignoring Jeepers Creepers because that director's gross. But anytime he makes a horror film, he makes an interesting choice with those films. And this did not disappoint. It was, I was terrified from the beginning, and it kept defying my expectations of where we were going to go. You start the movie and you think, okay, well, clearly Bill Skarsgård's a bad guy. And then from that point on, it's like, you're just going to be proven wrong every 5 seconds. And I dug that. It was a super fun watch. And I love Justin Long's character revealing himself in other ways, that this question that seems just like a catalyst for the story becomes something that is answered by the end of it. Yep. We know who exactly this person is. Great. Fucking great. And also, very on topic, for today's,
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, I dug it. Yeah, it was good.
Me too. I enjoyed watching that. But speaking of watchers, let's talk about another Shudder exclusive, a film called Watcher, which Watcher is about a couple moved to Romania. Is that where it was? No, I don't remember where it was. It's been a while.
Bulgaria? I'm not sure.
Some Eastern European country, yeah. Where the husband is initially, his family is from, and they move into a kind of nice apartment. He's got a good job. They're having some marital issues, but in this apartment they have these huge windows. When the wife realizes somebody across the street is continuously watching her. And this makes her more paranoid. It seeps into her everyday life. Chad, what did you think about the film Watcher?
This one is another slow burn, but this one is a really slow burn. It was too slow for me. I am a big fan of Micah Monroe, the main actress in this movie, from The Guest and It Follows, of course. So, I do like her a lot. And of course she carried the movie. She's in 99.9% of the scenes, basically. But most of the time she's just by herself and not a whole lot's going on. She's just doing nothing in her house. And then she realizes, oh, it looks like somebody's watching me across the street. Or she's walking down the street thinking she's being watched. Like, there's a lot of like paranoid to it. We've seen movies like this a bunch. Is the lead actress crazy, or is she not crazy? Is she really being watched / stalked, or is she not? It's Hitchcocky in that regard. And I don't think it necessarily really delivered. It was fine.
Yeah.
But it was slow for way too long for an ending that was like, fine.
See, I disagree with the ending thing. I think the ending is the best part of the movie, but
I agree with that, but that's because the rest of it was super slow.
Yeah, agreed. I think it was a fine watch. If you like a slow thriller burn, it's enough. It's the movie enough with Jennifer Lopez, but not as action packed. Like, that's kind of what you're watching, right? And I think everybody in it does great. It is just very trying to be Hitchcockian in its delivery, and it's just not as good. But that's not to say it's not good. It's just not as good. And that takes me to the next one, the last horror movie I think we're talking about. Only I watched this one. It's a Shudder exclusive. It's called So Vam, and it's, I believe, an Australian film, maybe Kiwi, but it's about a young gay man who becomes a vampire and has to adjust to that lifestyle. And there's like a war between vampires there, and it's not great. It's not great. It's super low budget. And so I think they do a lot of things very well, and it's interesting because the vast majority of it does take place within the LGBTQ community. There are a lot of trans actors involved, and so it's awesome to see that representation within a B horror movie. But sometimes the budget really plays against them, and some moments are just a little too cheesy for my taste. And I love queso, so it's really surprising. But yeah, like I like it for the representation and a couple of moments, but good effort. I'd be interested to see what they do next, sort of film, and then that takes us to our last thing that we're discussing. We've kept Rob here for the entire time, not giving him anything to talk about.
Happy to be here.
He didn't go to the
great show,
once.
Guys.
Yeah.
Oh, you think so, huh?
Gross. Our diaper spokesperson, Rob Praga, will be able to discuss this next one. The newest Star Wars show dropping on Disney Plus. Now, there have been 3 episodes. Rob and I have seen all 3. Chad's only seen the first one, so we won't give too many spoilers. But it is a prequel to a prequel, and it is the series Andor, starring Diego Luna and Stellan Skarsgård, and the lady from Morbius and Good Omens, who is just gorgeous and phenomenal. She plays the main female character.
She's Bix. Is she the one who played Bix?
I don't know.
Is it Adria Arjona?
I think so, yeah.
I'll never have a photo that looks that good, by the way. I'm just going to put IMDb. Look at that photo.
Let me look her up.
Holy mother of God, that photo.
While I'm looking her up to look at this photo, Chad, why don't you tell me what you thought about that first episode of Andor?
I realize probably why they released 3 episodes at once, because the first episode didn't really give me a whole lot. It's fine. It's hard for me to even talk about it because not a whole lot was going on in it. He kills the cops or whatever, and then he's just gathering parts to get out of the city or get out of the planet, whatever. Not a whole lot happened. Granted, there's a lot more to watch. I'm going to watch it at Star Wars, but this one wasn't like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to see what happens next. Oh my goodness. So, we'll see about that one. You guys can talk about this one.
Rob, go ahead.
I was just laughing at his, oh my goodness. Golly gee. I have a love-hate relationship with Star Wars. I dislike most of them. I don't know how many projects there have been, but this immediately leapt into my top 5. Though I would say the top 5 are really good. I really hold them in high esteem here. My top 5 would be not in any particular order. New Hope, Empire, Rogue One, Mandalorian, and this. Everything else falls a little short of these. And I'm being kind. Some of them fall a lot short of this, but I think I certainly found it refreshing to turn on a Star Wars thing where, and I think, had you asked me if I can tell critically with my eye the difference between something shot in the volume and something shot practical, I wouldn't know. But all I can tell you is watching this immediately, the scope it felt epic to me, the way the tone and the feeling and the way it was shot. It immediately pulled me in. And maybe that was just because I think maybe I was jonesing for something a little more grounded and darker. I've bashed sometimes fairly, sometimes unfairly, the Obi-Wan series for its almost childlike Saturday morning HR puff and stuff bullshit tone, which I hated. There's a Rogue One. Again, Rogue One I thought was really fantastic. I think what's good about this is its characters who are not part of the main group of characters. Obviously, with Rogue One, we learned that they obviously had a big hand in the destruction of the giant ball thing.
Yep, exactly. The board ship.
The giant ball thing. Yeah, I call it the giant ball thing.
Big fan of Star Wars here.
Hey, how many of you hated that giant ball thing? They blew up 2 of those fuckers. Death Star. Thank you. Death Star ball thing.
We said it 20 minutes ago.
I know. Nobody's listening. I think they're more comfortable taking liberties with characters and areas of this world that aren't so beholden to the lunatic fringe of Star Wars fans. I think the Mandalorian, was introduced. I believe please correct me. The character of the Mandalorian, was he introduced in any of the cartoons or any of the comics or anything? Where was the word Mandalore? I mean, where was that first introduced? Was that?
Yeah, I mean, that's the Christmas special where that's first introduced.
Is that right? Really? Well, that's crazy.
This is Boba Fett.
Because the Mandalorian's a darker tone, at least season 1, I thought, than a lot of the other Star Wars stuff. Anyway, I digress. Episodes 1, 2, and 3 felt like I think they needed to be together because they built a very tightly. I think you needed to get him going to where he was going, and to leave the first episode by itself, second episode by itself, I think would have been a mistake. It was a nice hour 40-minute movie, which I thought was well cast, well shot, and in tones of Blade Runner, and I know it's Star Wars, it's not Blade Runner. But I think Star Wars could use a little Blade Runner to balance out the fucking HR puff and stuff that they've been leading towards recently. So I think I love it. I'm hooked. It feels mature. It feels grounded. It feels dirty, gritty. The actors are tremendous. Mm-hmm. Did you find the photo of Biggs?
Yeah. She's amazing.
That's a stunning photo. Holy crap. Anyway,
but I also think every photo of that woman is going to be stunning.
Pretty good. Pretty good. Yeah, pretty good. That's a pretty good one of the good ones.
I don't think a duck face is going to ruin her. I also really enjoyed the way Rob walks things back. Like, maybe I was unfair on these piece of shit motherfucking like anyway.
A mafia guy apologizes. I'm so sorry I insulted your piece of shit dinner.
Yeah, I don't know. Movie reviews by a New York sanitation worker. This is anyway.
Bet knows critics bring you. Hey, I'll talk about that piece of shit. That's fine. It's a piece of shit.
Yeah, his fucking movie was shot. Okay. Anyway, whatever. I look. This isn't my favorite because I still think Obi-Wan Kenobi.
You're a mental case if you think that for a fucking second. For the love of Christ. You're not even, you're just doing it You're doing it for the sake of conflict. You're doing it for the sake of drama. You have to be so fucked up in your head. You have to be on so many drugs to think for a second that Obi-Wan Kenobi was remotely as good. It's not even shot by. It's awful. It's fucking awful. I'm sorry, I lost my mind there.
I'm glad Rob woke up from his nap during our horror movie talk.
And I mean, what I mean by that, Keith, is I think a rational person weighing things out evenly would have a real tough time.
I mean, I really appreciate your opinion, Keith. I mean, it's wrong, but I appreciate
Clearly.
Oh my God. If you even fucking put them in the same goddamn sentence again, my head's going to explode.
I also didn't even say anything. I just said
Hey,
I said the name of the show.
You've lost your right to say anything. Who was that mental case director you worked with recently? Don't say his name, but he's the one we saw the movie. We saw the magazine article. You know, he drove up on the motorcycle. Yeah, using Obi-Wan Kenobi in the same phrase as this show is like putting that guy's name in the same thing as Scorsese. For the love of God. Thank you. I'm yelling. My poor puppy is looking at me like, is everything okay? No, it's not.
So Obi-Wan Kenobi.
The greatest piece of Star Wars pop culture ever created.
Absolutely.
It's a piece of something, all right. Yes, it is. You're right.
I have more of a connection to that character specifically than I do to Andor Cassian. But I love Rogue One. I think Rogue One was phenomenal. But the micro journey that the Obi-Wan Kenobi show takes us on feels very insular, right? It's about how one man gets over his grief and his guilt, right? I feel like this, on the other hand, is not just a shift in tone, but a shift in scope. How do we start the rebellion? That's what this show feels like. And the same way that Marvel has this ability to, all right, we're going to do a heist film. This show is more geared towards women. This is geared towards teenagers. It feels like Andor and what the Star Wars shows are doing now is sort of experimenting with the different styles of stories they could tell. This is Winter Soldier all the fucking way. This is Secret Invasion all the fucking way. So the thing that excites me, there is one thing that disappointed me in the first 3 episodes. We have these flashback sequences, and I kind of wanted them not to be flashback sequences because I thought that would be a super creative choice. You know what I mean? Because they are.
So you meant to have them ultimately be parallel, but you think they're flashback and reveal them together at the same time. That would have been very cool.
Yeah, right. So I got in my head that maybe that's what we're doing and that it wasn't what we were doing. But I still feel that where that 3rd episode ends is masterfully brought together. Yeah. Beautiful. And that one lady doesn't redeem herself for treating Harry Potter so poorly, but she does a great job in these fucking 3 episodes.
She's amazing.
Amazing. And Stellan Skarsgård was fun.
Awesome.
Just a great cast all around. So I'm digging this, and I'm here to see the rest of it. It is not my favorite Star Wars show yet, and I don't know why I'm still not latched onto it as much. Maybe it just doesn't speak to me as much as some of the others do. But I do love it. I think it's better than Book of Boba Fett. So whatever.
You're the only show that you can't say it's better than is The Mandalorian.
Clone Wars, I think, is still better.
Okay, but that's not in my. That
doesn't count. It's a cartoon.
Fucking tunes.
I think Twin Peaks is better. I think a lot of X-Files. I'm a big.
Well, Obi-Wan Kenobi was a cartoon too, wasn't it? So what does that count? Sorry.
I don't. You're talking to 2 40-year-old man children. So calling something a cartoon is not an insult. So we're like, exactly. Fuck yeah, cartoons, man. That's just.
Damn. That was a good insult.
Damn it. So yeah. Anyway, so that's all I got. So yeah, Andor. I'm excited to see where it goes.
It's a good show. It's a really good show. I think I look forward to seeing what's coming next. It'll be nice.
Also, I do want to say, you said something about, I think that he did this to avoid the lunatic fringe of the fan base. That's not going to help him. every fan base is lunatic. The world blew up because there were black dwarves and elves and a mermaid. So mythical creatures. Like, I think all fan bases need to calm the fuck down. So that's mine.
Oh no, absolutely. I just think, ultimately they planned on releasing one at a time. They looked at this and they were like, it's just not going to be enough to kind of, they're looking at, because they do have to take into consideration the lunatic fringe, because it's a big old lunatic fringe.
Yeah.
And I think they thought they would lose too many people if only one was released. And I think 3 was great. That's a great idea. And
I think it's also it feels like one arc, so I hope their episodes feel like an arc thing. The other thing I would say, I said that was all I had to say, but apparently it's not. It's interesting too, because halfway through, like maybe the second episode, I was thinking about that first episode and how Cassian Andor is a terrible fucking person. And yet,
he's a criminal.
Yeah. Everything he's done is bad. He should be the bad guy. But yet because of our perspective, we're automatically on his side, which is such a strange thing. You know what I mean?
Well, again, juxtaposition too. We juxtaposing him against the scumbag, the scumbag Empire guys at the bar. We're juxtaposing him, who started it. He's sort of the reluctant bad guy at this point. He's just trying to survive. He's juxtaposed against Bix's scumbag boyfriend. He's juxtaposed against certain, there are people coming at him who we're seeing at a moment where the people in his lives are under the microscope, don't look great if we're just coming at him without knowing the backstory.
Yeah, I totally see that. But I also say the scumbag corporation guys, what was the thing they did so wrong? I mean, they were corrupt. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Well, they were assholes to him in the bar, and then they tried to shake him down.
Yeah, but is that justifying murder?
Yes.
Every day. You heard it
here first.
Twice he doesn't like women.
Twice.
Exactly.
I think in that world, it was clear that he really had no choice at that point. You're going to trust those Empire guys? I mean, come on.
He even murdered, though, in Rogue One, if I'm remembering correctly. Does he not kill a guy
at the very beginning
because he's like, hey, sorry to do this, but if the Empire catches you, I know you're going to tell them what you told me, so I've got to kill you. And he kills him.
Yeah.
And that guy, I mean, he wasn't a bad guy.
So even within this context, the boyfriend, Tim or whatever his name is like, he ratted somebody out of a very negative place, a place of jealousy. But we're comparing the murder of 2 guys who are bad guys, but not the bad guys. Yet we're letting Cassian pass. And you had a fucking problem with Grogu eating eggs in a show?
They should have killed that. They should have killed that Grogu motherfucker for eating those eggs.
God damn. I'm just saying, it's weird to think about.
I still believe at some point Grogu is going to go, I apologize for eating those eggs. That's what he sounds like, by the way.
Keith, let me ask you something. Do you on the regular shake people down? Because I feel like you are really defending these guys.
I'm just saying it's not the worst thing you can do.
Guys got to make a living.
Well, acting hasn't been too kind. So
side hustles, baby. Side hustles are all the rage. The shakedown, baby.
Well, speaking of the shakedown, that's basically what our show has been. Chad, where can the people find you?
Find me on Twitter, Chad129X. They can find the podcast on Twitter, NQC Podcast. And I'll say next episode, we'll probably be covering Phase 7 of the MCU. That's
Black Panther 2.
Part 5.
Exactly.
Yep. That's the next time we'll meet.
Yep. Rob, what about yourself? Where can people find you?
I'm at Twitter at Rob Pralgo, which I'm never on, or Instagram at Rob Pralgo, which I'm never on. You can find me there. Leave me a message. I'll get back to you.
And I agree, Rob is never on. Thank you guys so much for joining us. We'll be back next time.
If only you can see Chad's face. Thanks.
It looks as good as that one lady's photo.
Not Quite Cool is a podcast recorded in Atlanta, Georgia, in conjunction with Actors Teaching Actors and Bean Dip Productions. Thanks.